So in this video, I want to talk about the California gubernatorial race one more time. Well, not one more time. I'm actually going to make a video probably tomorrow about the most recent debate last Tuesday in the California gubernatorial race. But the California gubernatorial race, we have a jungle primary system. Only the top two vote getters in the primary will advance regardless of party. And so that's creating a interesting scenario where there's this fear that we may end up in a general election choosing between two Republicans as to who's going to lead the state. One of them being the ever so annoying Steve Hilton, who believes that the promise of America exists within the knowledge that you as an individual can work hard and open your own business. It's like, dude, not only, it's actually really funny. I'm going to mention this in the gubernatorial debate video because, this guy pissed me off. He doesn't even know what country he wants to represent. He comes from Britain. Okay, great. I love Britain. They're beautiful. Whatever. Fuck Britain, but, fine. You're from Britain, cool. Now he's in California, and then he's on the damn debate stage, and somebody said something, it was Becerra said, oh, well, Steve Hilton's daddy, blah, blah, blah. He goes, my daddy was the captain of the Hungarian national football team. Dude, pick a damn country, bro. But, this isn't going to be about any of the mainstream people, actually, because, I have more thoughts on them, and we'll get to that with the debate. But this video is going to be about one of the least popular candidates. And least popular, I mean, really in a tragic way, because, I'm talking about Butch Ware, who's running for the Green Party nomination for governor. And, I mean, what a tragedy. First of all, I have not been following Butch Ware's campaign closely. And I haven't been doing so because I do not trust that man. I think that you can tell when politicians have what is required to win, which is, first of all, the willingness to push for their policies, to push in the media, to be bold and be aggressive in advocating for the change. Second is the actual tact to understand what buttons you should press and when, how to get the sort of news clips and things with the most upside and least downside. That's another very important thing to look for in politicians. You saw that with Zohran Mamdani. And then the third thing is the organizing. You cannot be an insurgent, anti-establishment candidate and believe that somehow, some way, your victory is going to be carried through simply by being the best candidate. That's ridiculous, because if you're anti-establishment, you recognize that we have had leaders who were not the best candidates and that nothing about them being poor candidates precluded them from winning. And much the same, nothing about you being a good candidate will guarantee your win. So I don't think Butch Ware recognizes these things. I don't think he did in 2024 when he was running as the Green Party vice president nominee. And I don't think he understands them now. Now, I say this in a very particular position because I actually go to UCSB, which is the school where Butch Ware teaches. And, there's a strange sort of dissonance that's been developing because I also follow a lot of, sort of left-wing YouTubers and media personalities and things like that. And they all have, pretty, I wouldn't say like, glowing reviews or anything. It's not like I don't watch like, people who are like, oh, Butch Ware's the future. He's a California Zoran. But I do watch people who are, just somewhat positive about the guy. However, again, I do have this sort of checklist that I apply to politicians. And Butch Ware is just absolutely failing. So it's a very curious situation. And, about 2 weeks ago now, I had the opportunity to actually attend a Butch Ware event here in Isla Vista. And I got to talk to him after as well. And so here, let me break down the situation. There's a church here in Isla Vista, which is the community right outside of UC Santa Barbara, where Butch Ware teaches. And at this church, this is a Methodist church, and it's like a university church as well. Very progressive church. As a matter of fact, YDSA meetings are held in the same church. So I was, very familiar with it. I've been there plenty of times. And I get to the event extremely, extremely late. The event started, it was 2 to 6, and they had Guy Christensen, some TikToker there. And I got there, closer to 4:30-ish because I was doing an assignment and, college stuff. And so by the time I get there, Butch Ware's not speaking or anything. But I do get to, kind of observe him and see how how he operates a little bit. And oh my God. I mean, I'll get to it more in depth in in a second. But there are markers and signs, as I mentioned, that I use to try to evaluate political candidates, and this is something that I am deeply, deeply passionate about. It's my life's devotion, right? Is effectuating political change, and so despite the fact that I may only be 21 years old with little to show for that bigger long term goal, I've got lots of opinions. I do, and I saw Butch Ware while there were panelists. There were, I think, 3 professors or something like that, and then a questioner as well. Again, I got to the event late, so I don't really know what's going on. But Butch Ware is in the audience, and I'm just looking around and I'm seeing, okay, well, we have this event in this college town where Butch Ware is a professor, where Butch Ware has students who he can talk to, or past students from a quarter back, 2 quarters back, a year back, 2 years back. And there's none of them there. There's none of them there. This room was filled with 40-year-olds. This room was primarily filled with literally the people who were invited to speak at the event, their immediate family members, and people required to staff the event. That's genuinely what it looked like to me. Like, that was the entire constituency. Meanwhile, we have all these cameras. We have all of this, professional. We have this draping of aesthetics. And in the actual event, I felt like I was watching activists try to organize within a political party and failing at both. Because, quite frankly, the people who were speaking, I don't think anything negative of them. They were fine, normal leftists or whatever. But I just don't understand where they connect the their political beliefs and desires to this political party. But that's a me thing more so than a them thing. But on top of that, activists and politicians have different goals. And activists' goals are to galvanize the community and mobilize the community. Activists are the chess players themselves. Meanwhile, politicians are designing the game. So for activists to act like politicians, or politicians to act like activists, it's in many cases, for me at least, I go, you are a little bit lost. You don't seem to have the focus that you need to fill this role to its greatest capacity. Not to say that politicians can't be activists, nor vice versa, just that they are distinct roles. And as a political party, you are tasked with dealing not in galvanizing the people solely, not in getting these passions high and getting people to feel enraged about something. You are tasked with the much more difficult part of that, which is doing something about it, and doing something about it that's big, doing something about it that's actually going to change people's lives on a broad scale. Meanwhile, activists, you are tasked with the day-to-day work. You're the person who looks around in your community and you say, we can do better than this, and you do better. That's a much harder job. It's a much harder job, and it's a much more thankless one. So I guess the red flag that I'm trying to describe, the reason for me giving that context, is to say that this combination of the activist and the politician can be done in a very progressive way, in a sort of building way, the way Bernie Sanders does it, where Bernie Sanders is a politician with many particular, very big ideas as to what we need to change and why, and good communication to help that message spread, and institutional maneuvering to actually bring about those outcomes. Bernie Sanders, that's an activist politician, but he's filling both of his roles to the highest degree. But what this Green Party event was using the aesthetics of activism to create a notion of a political party where one does not exist. I don't think the Green Party is a real thing. I don't think Butch Ware is a real candidate, quite frankly. And my belief, that belief was only furthered by the questions that he began to take outside. So we get outside after the event, and Butch is standing there with a couple of people surrounding him asking questions. And so these are the 4 or 5 people who were not directly affiliated with the event who decided to show up. And call it 10 if you include myself and the people who I came with. And these people were asking him, so why do you think you can be governor? And this is a very important question. I didn't want to ask it myself because I would not have asked it. I would have asked it with quite a lot of condescension, quite frankly. Because Butch Ware, you cannot be governor. Why are you running for governor when you can't be governor? And is the fact that you're running for governor while not being able to win something that you are considering in the way that you're designing your campaign? If so, how? What is the next step? And he wouldn't have enjoyed that. And so I'm happy somebody else asked him because his answer was extremely instructive. Butch Ware responded, and he said, "Hey, well, we don't have enough money to do our own internal polls, but we think that the reason that they didn't want to give us ballot access was because they have their own internal polls, which are showing me tied or leading the other candidates." Well, Butch, you just said you can't afford to do your own polls. In the only public polls, while, yes, Butch Ware is not being polled as consistently as, the more prominent candidates, Butch Ware is included on some polls. In the polls that he's included in, there's no indication that he is this, stalwart, who garners his own portion of the electorate, small as it may be. It is significant. This is not the case. I haven't seen that. And so what Butch Ware is doing is lying. Now, Butch Ware, I am not faulting him for lying itself. Lying is a necessary part of politics, unfortunately. Lying is an unfortunate part of life. And so you do have to lie in politics sometimes, but there are things you have to consider when you lie. When your voters find out about this lie, are they going to understand your reasons for it, or are they going to resent your dishonesty? That's one thing. Second thing, is this lie actually conducive to the goals that you have? Will this lie do the thing that you want it to do? In which case, of course, obviously don't do it. But then also, you have the question of, if you have to lie now, are you going to have to keep lying? And if you're going to have to keep lying, what the fuck are you doing? If you're going to have a political vision, your political vision should be able to rest on the merits of its success. You can't say, I think the world should be this way, and then also at the same time believe I'm going to have to lie every single day of my life so that people don't realize that not only is the world not this way, but that the world can't be this way, and I don't know how to fix that problem. So instead, what I'll fix is the way that people interpret the world that I have not changed as I promised. And so Butch Ware, he's lying here. But for what purpose? Butch Ware, are you going to stop lying? I don't think so. I think Butch Ware is doing the absolute worst type of lie. Because first of all, you're building your support on this notion that if any lack of success is a product of malfeasance and people manipulating the system and trying to keep you out. And what does that do necessarily? You are saying to people that I'm the only candidate you can vote for. There's no one else worth voting for. You shouldn't even vote if it's not for me. And you're not just implying that with your message. You're basically explicitly saying it. You're creating that sentiment within people. That is so deleterious to the goals of any politician who actually wants change for working class people. The best way to get change for working class people in a system in which we can elect our representatives is to get those working class people and facilitate their participation in the electoral process. Not because electoralism will save us, but because they have influence that is yet to be exhausted. And in an instance where you are drowning, where you are dying, maybe you can take the bricks out of your pocket. That's what voting is. You're taking the bricks out of your pocket and you're saying, okay, well, look, I can't get out of this water. I'm 45, I'm 200 feet away from the shore, but I'm drowning right now, and there's bricks in my pocket. What if I took them out? Okay, that's a step. Now that we have the bricks out of our pocket, now let's start, okay, we can't swim. Can we get some help? Somebody who can help swim. Does anyone have a boat? Then a boogie board, you then start to move from there. But you have to start with removing the simplest obstacles first. And instead of doing that, Butch Ware is doing the opposite, where he's creating a new obstacle for anyone who comes after him. That is arrogant, that is bad, and that is not how you should do politics. But then, so... After that, I looked around for a little bit and I was like, this guy's not really about anything. And then we talked to, me and the people who I came with, we talked to a friend, the person who actually is the reason that we all showed up, who, was like I invite you, you invite your friends, and, blah, blah, blah. And we talked to them for a little bit, and they were telling us about how they got involved in the campaign in the first place. When they were like, I was talking shit on social media, and then they were like, well, you have some good ideas, come get involved. And then they were telling me about how much of a mess the campaign is, how they have a Discord where supposedly campaign activities are centralized and coordinated, but such activities aren't materializing, where this individual had been asking, can people help me put up flyers for this event that's upcoming? Can people help me make flyers for this event that's upcoming? And had a very, laggy, not super conducive to winning a political campaign sort of working environment. Bad stuff. But that's not, I wish that was the worst. So at this point, this group of friends and I, we go, well, look, let's go talk to Mr. Ware. It kind of sounds like headless chicken situation. And we go to talk to Butch Ware, and he eventually invites us to sit down on a bench while he explains his perspective. But before that, he does this other thing. And Butch Ware knows what he's doing, and that's why I don't like him. I don't like Butch Ware because Butch Ware's a cynical bastard, in my estimation. Butch Ware knows that he has no prospects electorally. I don't think Butch Ware is educated enough on what he is attempting to do in electoral politics to effectuate it. And I think that he is aware that he doesn't have that knowledge. I think he doesn't care that he doesn't have that knowledge. And I think ultimately he is in this for himself and for his ego. If you look at his campaign materials, he just loves putting his face on shit. I mean, he's 6'3", he's tall. I bet deep down inside somewhere, there is a sense that his ego has never been fully fulfilled to the extent that he thinks is deserved. And, fair enough. Like, I can't hate. I'd be pretty pissed if I was in Butch Ware's position as well, and I had political ambitions. But, the solution to failure to have done something is not to do a half-assed shitty version of it. The solution to any sort of failure, if you didn't become the person you wanted to be in life or whatever it may be, is to take a look around, say, where am I now, and can I still get there? Is there still a path for me to be the thing that I wish I was, the thing that I want to be so desperately, the thing that would make me feel like a full man, like the person who I always thought that I was. And yeah, I don't think, I don't know. I just don't think Butch Ware is I don't think he's taking that into consideration. I think he's just like sleepwalking through this. But so we walk up. Our group approaches Butch, and one of my neighbor actually, she's Russian, and she says hi, and he says, "Oh hi, oh where are you from?" And she goes, "Oh, I'm from Russia," and then he responds in Russian, "Oh blah, 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 and they're having a great time yakking it up, and the smiles are going, and I'm like, okay, I see this. This is the interpersonal part of the politician. This is the charmer. This is the everyone has to like me and have a positive impression of whatever our interaction was, whether I agree or don't with them, which is an important quality to have. That's one of the very many things that you need to be a good politician. But then he just keeps going. He goes, oh, well, I learned Russian because they told me the Russians were the bad guys. And then I said, well, I know that these people are bad because they're oppressing me. And so therefore I went to learn Russian. And I'm like, okay, look, this is a great story. It's not a podcast, my guy. Like, we can say hi and, take a question or something. Why don't you ask us a question? Well, what is this, self-aggrandizement? This is all about me. Look at me, me. That's great that you're here, but, aren't you running a campaign? Which is what we then ask him. We go, look, Butch, our friend Tiana doesn't, excuse me, shouldn't be saying names. Our friend doesn't feel like they're getting the proper, the proper resources, the proper assistance, and actually, pushing this campaign. We'd love to help out, and we really do believe in the message, but we're not seeing, the sort of groundswell that you should associate with something like this. And he goes, oh yeah, well, and then he says, okay, come on, you guys come sit down. We all sit down at this bench, right? Gets out a piece of paper. He draws up this little quadrant. You got a top one on either side, and then one on the bottom. And it doesn't really matter what they were. It was something like executive, which is him at the top. There was strategy. There was events, and then there was outreach and messaging. Something I don't know. But his point was he drew this whole little triangle just to tell us, see this? He circled it and said, look, that's you guys. So what I need from you guys, and then he actually used the same quote that he uses all the time, which is starting to annoy me actually. Now that I realize that he just pulls this out, as a sort of like, I don't have anything to say, so let me say nothing, but with words, which is the same thing that Russian little back and forth was as well. And lost my train. Hold on. And he says to us, this here area, this strategy, this is for you, because never, as they say in the Quran, never do we send a messenger except in the language of their people, whatever. And so then after that, I'm just, I'm personally like fuming at this point, because what he pretty much did is he sat us down and he said, look, little school children, let me explain to you how a campaign works. Do you know your ABCs? A, B, C. And not only did he do that, or at least in his tone, he did that, but he did so all to give us an answer that was so deeply unsatisfactory. You mean to tell me that we can say, hey, Butch, we don't think that you're getting the outreach that you deserve with your messaging, with your platform? What's up with that? What can we do to actually help this campaign? And he just goes, oh, well, it's your job to talk to your friends, to post it on social media, and to come back to us with the strategy and tell us what we're missing and what we need, because, you have to send the message in the language of their own people. Dude, that's not how politics works. Do you know what mass media is? Do you know what do you know how to engage people? Getting a couple of likes on Instagram Reels, not enough. You need to get many likes on Instagram Reels. But more important than getting likes on Instagram Reels, you need people who are committed and believing in your cause. People who are willing to put work in, put time in, put hours in. Because what those people do is they inspire more people. And if your response to people who are telling you, looking you in the eye directly to your face and saying that they are those people, if your response is just here's some coloring practice and a little distraction, then, I mean, dude, you're cooked. You're cooked. And you're not just cooked. You're a bad person. You're a bad person. I have political ambitions. I want to run for office. And ultimately, the reason that an individual, in my opinion, should run for office if they do want to run for office, is to actually help the people that they want to represent. If you're going to run and say, you vote for me to be your representative in this legislative body as judges or whatever it may be, then you are telling them, I want to represent you. I care about you. I care about us. I care about this community, and I want to advance it. I want to further it. I want to improve it. And who do you need to do that, huh? You're going to go do it alone? No. You need the same damn people that you're asking to give you their votes. You're going to need them to give you their time. You're going to need them to give you their money. You're going to need them to give you their trust, their passion, their love. You're going to need to unite so many things from the constituency in order to actually win a campaign, because you need to be about something more than nothing. You can't be an empty, cynical bastard. You can't. And that's what he showed me to have been. Again, I go to UCSB. I have a friend who had a Butch Ware course. Matter of fact, It was this fall quarter he had the Butch Ware course, which only goes to further my point that this man has students who he could be asking to get involved, that he's not, or that he's not able to ask because maybe the students didn't enjoy his class, or maybe the students weren't involved enough in politics, in which case, again, Butch, what are you doing? You're telling me you're a professor and a political candidate and you can't get your students excited to support you running for office? Come on. It's embarrassing. It's ridiculous. And it's nonsensical, really. I have my own criticisms of the political organizations on campus and their involvement with the gubernatorial campaign that's going on right now, the election that's in just a little bit over a month. But all of those criticisms are, ultimately for students, for people who are my age, for people who are experiencing all of the same things that, have me tweaking every day. Everyone else around me is tweaking too, because we're just kids. We're kids and we've never been given even the most basic chance to believe that our country was one built on principles of, built on positivity, let's say. We were never even given the opportunity to believe in the lie. And it's rude. It's quite rude because the whole thing is predicated on a lie. And we didn't even get a chance to be lulled into a false sense of hope, a false sense of anything. Because not only is everything falling apart now, but we don't even have any job prospects for the most advanced among us, the most intelligent, the most well-resourced. We're all looking down the barrel of a gun and we're just smiling. We're just smiling, saying, I'm sure things are going to work out fine. And so fine, we don't have enough involvement on campus from, campus Dems and Republicans and just political groups in general. That's one thing. But I cannot and I will not excuse a grown-ass man who is telling you that I'm going to run for office because I'm a leader, because I'm somebody who the people look towards to get things done that they can't do themselves, to articulate the thoughts that they have had that they don't know how to express, to unite the daily experience of so many different people along lines that they can all understand and all buy into. And you mean to tell me that you of all people can't get the involvement on campus? Well, then why the fuck should I vote for you? So confusing. It's confusing because I actually do like Butch Ware's politics, and his politics aren't built on cynicism. It's his political action itself that's built on cynicism, which is so much more cynical, which only frustrates me more. Butch Ware's not going to win. There's really no reason to talk about it. Maybe he'll have a little bit more of a a splash or an influence in the primary at some point, but I doubt it. He's not even on the ballot because incompetence. But I don't think it's really going anywhere, and I'm very upset that to the extent that people are galvanized in this way, they don't have a proper political outlet. I think Tom Steyer will provide that, but I do think that there's a constituency of people who aren't going to vote for Tom Steyer, who don't like Tom Steyer, and I'd love for them to have an alternative in somebody who actually cared about the thing that they were engaging in. If your argument's going to be that they're just sharks in the water and we shouldn't swim in there, and you're going to be the person to come and warn us and tell us it's sharks in there, don't swim. You also got to get in the water. You got to get in the water because you're telling me there's sharks in the water. You're telling me that both of these political parties are evil, are problems, are threats to us. But you're afraid of them? You're afraid of them? You can't go do what they do? You can't? Well, then what's your purpose? You're useless. I don't know. It's a shame. And I haven't looked in enough to the Green Party funding, but I know there was speculation at some point about Jill Stein's connections with Russia or whatever, and I don't really like to entertain that stuff personally because I think the whole Russia thing was a very well-crafted and deliberate distraction for the liberal base from the reality of how and why Donald Trump is able to be a successful politician. And by having this, sort of Russia thing in the background, people weren't focused as much as they are now on Democratic incompetence. But maybe there is some sort of a foreign billionaire influence here on why Butch Ware moves this way, because he does have a sort of cadre of top officials who are all paid while the rest of the campaign is volunteer run and they don't have enough money to do anything. But for some reason, Butch Ware is running all over the country and so excited to do so. But they're also too broke to fucking poll. None of it makes sense. But, I'd be open to talking to Butch Ware. He's somewhere pretty close by, unless he's in Pasadena City College or something like that. But I don't know. I'm honestly a bit defeated even by the fact that I have to talk about this because, again, as I mentioned in my last video about this gubernatorial race, this shit is serious. It's very serious. It's all very serious. We got to treat it that way. And if we don't, guess what happens when you don't take survival seriously? You don't have a life anymore. When you don't have a life anymore, you don't have the ability to say, wait, let's do something else. You have to act with foresight because hindsight's not real when it comes to not dying. It doesn't exist.